We are on the lower portion, the lower segment of the South Skirmish line. And once again, picking up the story, we have marble markers representing the killed, most likely Company E men with a little bit of Company F. The company is still retreating with Indians all over them. And if we turn around here, you can see Last Stand Hill in the distance there. And you can see the upper reaches there of the upper segment of the South Skirmish line. Cemetery Ridge. So the soldiers, we're starting to come downhill now. And the soldiers are trying to get to the deep ravine, which is right in front of us here. And if we look over to our east, you can see we have some more markers, a couple in the back there, and one right in front. And we'll continue walking. It's been a long walk. This is about 3/4 of a mile. So, and all the soldiers are on foot. And you're scared out of your wits because the soldiers are being harassed by the Indians. They're getting killed as they go. A lot of these markers on the southern part of this line, the lower segment of the South Skirmish line, are spurious. They don't actually mark a soldier position where he fell. In fact, most of these represent the soldiers that died in Deep Ravine, and they were placed up here in 1890 along the path here just because they couldn't, take 28 markers and bunch them all together into the ravine down here. I guess they wanted to make it look more aesthetically pleasing just to place the markers along the road here, the path here. And we have another group here. And you notice that a lot of these markers on the South Skirmish line, the upper and lower segments, are in pairs. So we continue on down here, and we're starting to get real close to Deep Ravine. These soldiers are mainly running without resisting, so you're having deaths along the way. Paired markers. And paired markers, one on the trail here, definitely spurious. The NPS would never stick a marker right in the middle. Now this marker right here, might as well get a closer shot of it. This is actually for the surgeon. George Edwin Lord, assistant surgeon. He held the military rank of first lieutenant. They erroneously placed the marker here when they found some medical buttons at this position, and unfortunate that it hasn't been moved since. Eyewitness testimony pretty much agrees that Dr. Lord was found up on Last Stand Hill about 20 feet away from Custer's body. He was a little bit further down on the western slope of Last Stand Hill. And you can see, we'll look up that way. You can't see Last Stand Hill now. We are definitely on the lower segment of the South Skirmish line and the bottomland. Continue on down. We have a few more markers before we get to the Deep Ravine. That's an original 1890 marker there. Continue on. A couple more markers. Original. Newer marker here. Original marker back there. So by the time the soldiers got down here, and most of Company E that deployed off Last Stand Hill survived through the skirmish line areas. Eyewitness testimony at the end of the battle stated that only, I believe, 8 or 9 bodies were found between Custer Hill and the ravine. The majority of the bodies were here in Deep Ravine. So most of the soldiers that fled off the hill and continued to come down this way survived. They broke through the Indian ring and ran down here for safety, and many of them got in here. The 28 They most likely, as you can see, it's pretty steep. Let me get an overhead view here. Show you exactly what we're dealing with. There's the ridge up there, and we're looking straight down. I'm saying it's a good 18 feet from where I'm standing down to the ravine floor there. And we'll actually look up the ravine a little bit. The soldiers got in here possibly with the intent of actually climbing up the other side. And you can see, this ridge is pretty high. We actually do have some markers over there on the other side, so apparently a couple people made it up that far, actually got up there. But the majority of the soldiers got into this deep ravine, and then they couldn't get out, and the Indians were right on them. So what they probably did was, based on what the Indians say, is a lot of them tried to hide in this brush here and conceal themselves. Many more started to run down the deep ravine here toward the river, but Indians were coming up the ravine from the river, so that brought the soldiers, that turned them around and brought them up here to what is really called the head cut portion of the deep ravine. And it was somewhere in this point that the 28 men, for the most part, were bunched together, and the Indians just simply surrounded this area and shot down on them and killed them all. And of course, Indians coming up from the ravine came over, and I'm sure they scalped some guys, and there was some looting and things like that. They took their weapons. But the last of the Custer fighting occurred in this ravine here, and there were no survivors from Custer's battalion. Figure by 5:30, 5:35, 5:40, somewhere around that time frame, the Custer battle is over, and the last fighting has occurred here. Custer's last stand actually ends here.